Have you ever wondered why you are still here after everything that tried to break you? Why the trap was perfectly designed? The voices were convincing. The smiles looked sincere. The opportunities appeared irresistible. And yet something deep inside you refused to move. You could not explain it. You did not have evidence. You did not have proof. You only had a quiet uneasiness that refused to disappear. People called you paranoid. They said you were overthinking. They laughed when you walked away. They questioned your judgment. Some even became angry because you would not ignore what your spirit kept sensing. But listen carefully, because this moment is not an accident. That feeling was not fear. That hesitation was not weakness. That unshakable inner warning was a gift from God. It stood between you and a disaster you never fully saw. There are battles you never had to fight because God never allowed you to step onto that battlefield. There are betrayals you escaped because He exposed them before they could reach your heart. There are conversations you never had, contracts you never signed, friendships you never embraced, and doors you never entered because your discernment interrupted what your eyes could not detect. You have spent too much time wondering why life became lonely after you obeyed that quiet warning. But what if your loneliness was not punishment? What if it was protection? What if the people who disappeared were never assigned to stay? What if the opportunity that vanished was carrying hidden destruction behind its beautiful appearance? Today, I need you to hear this with every part of your soul. Your discernment did not make you lose your future. Your discernment saved your life. God was watching what you could not see. While you were trying to understand confusing behavior, hidden motives were already taking shape beyond your vision. While you questioned yourself, God never questioned His ability to guide you. While others trusted appearances, He was revealing truth to the deepest part of your spirit. That is why you could not force yourself to ignore the warning. That is why peace disappeared every time you tried to compromise. That is why something inside you kept whispering, "Do not go any further." You thought you were missing out, but in reality, God was keeping you from becoming another casualty of deception. The tears you cried because people misunderstood your decision were nothing compared to the tears you would have shed if you had ignored His direction. Do not apologize anymore for listening to what God placed within you. Do not regret the distance that formed after you honored that inner conviction. You survived what many never recognized until it was too late. And the reason you are still standing today is not because you knew everything. It is because God knew everything, and He faithfully awakened discernment inside you before danger ever introduced itself by name. There is something that happens when God begins preparing a person for a future that carries greater purpose. He changes the way that person sees, not with physical eyes alone, but with a deeper awareness that cannot be manufactured by intelligence, experience, or human instinct. Suddenly, what once appeared attractive begins to feel unsettling. Words that impress everyone else no longer persuade you. Promises that once would have excited you begin to sound hollow. You cannot always explain it, and that is where the struggle begins. The people around you expect you to make decisions based on appearances, popularity, or pressure. They ask for reasons you cannot yet provide. They demand evidence when all you possess is an unshakable conviction that refuses to leave your heart. It is one of the loneliest places a person can stand because discernment often speaks before visible proof arrives. God does not always reveal the entire storm. Sometimes He simply tells your spirit, "Do not sail," Everyone else may see calm waters, while he alone sees the waves gathering beyond the horizon. Everyone else may celebrate the invitation, while he already knows the hidden intention behind it. Your greatest protection was never the ability to predict the future. Your greatest protection has always been your willingness to trust the God who already stands in tomorrow. Think about how many times you almost ignored that quiet warning because you did not want to disappoint people. You nearly said yes just to avoid being misunderstood. You almost remained in conversations that were draining your peace because you feared being called difficult. You nearly accepted treatment that slowly weakened your confidence because you convinced yourself that enduring disrespect was the price of keeping relationships alive. Yet every single time you tried to silence what God was revealing, your peace became impossible to recover. That was not coincidence. God never intended peace to accompany compromise. He allowed the discomfort to remain because discomfort became the alarm that protected your destiny. Imagine if every warning had disappeared the moment you started rationalizing. Imagine if your spirit had become silent while deception grew louder. How many invisible wounds would you be carrying today? How many regrets would now define your life? God loved you too much to leave you comfortable while danger stood smiling in front of you. Sometimes His protection does not feel pleasant. Sometimes it feels like confusion because He refuses to let you settle where destruction is quietly waiting. Sometimes His mercy feels like delay because He knows that arriving late is far better than arriving broken. There were people who studied your kindness but never valued your heart. They learned your habits without honoring your loyalty. They memorized your weaknesses while pretending to celebrate your strengths. They smiled when they needed access, but their intentions shifted the moment your boundaries became stronger. The painful truth is that not every embrace carries love, and not every compliment carries sincerity. Some people recognize your potential before they recognize your humanity. They see what can be gained from your generosity, your compassion, your patience, and your willingness to forgive. Yet, God saw what they concealed long before they revealed it through their actions. He recognized every hidden motive before a single word left their mouths. While you were praying for clarity, He was already protecting your heart from attachments that would have left lasting scars. That is why certain relationships became exhausting instead of life-giving. That is why conversations left you emotionally drained even when nothing openly hostile was said. Your discernment was detecting what your ears could not hear. It was sensing the atmosphere behind the words, the intentions behind the smiles, and the direction behind every subtle influence. Never underestimate what God can reveal without making a public spectacle. He does not always expose deception with dramatic events. Often, He simply removes your peace until you realize that something is deeply wrong. Some of the hardest prayers you have ever prayed were not answered the way you expected because God's answer was not simply wait. His answer was look closer. You kept asking Him to bless what He was trying to separate you from. You kept asking Him to restore what He knew would eventually destroy your confidence. You kept asking Him to reopen doors that He had deliberately closed because His love refused to let your future become captive to your present emotions. Looking back now, can you see how many disappointments became unexpected deliverance? Can you recognize how many closed doors eventually revealed hidden mercy? At the time, rejection felt unbearable. Silence felt unbearable. Delay felt unbearable. But what if those moments were not evidence that God had forgotten you? What if they were evidence that He was refusing to surrender you to circumstances that your limited understanding could not yet recognize? The pain of losing something you wanted can never compare to the pain of losing the purpose God entrusted to your life. That is why He sometimes protects you by allowing temporary heartbreak instead of permanent devastation. Do not allow the voices of regret to rewrite your story. There will always be people who question why you walked away. Some will never understand why you chose peace over popularity, conviction over convenience, or obedience over acceptance. Let them misunderstand if they must. Their opinion cannot overturn God's protection. The same discernment that saved you before will continue to guide you ahead because God has not finished directing your steps. Every lesson sharpened your spiritual awareness. Every betrayal refined your wisdom instead of destroying it. Every disappointment taught you to value His guidance above human approval. You are not becoming suspicious of everyone. You are becoming more sensitive to what God is revealing. There is a profound difference. Fear isolates people from life, but discernment positions people for life. Fear assumes everyone is dangerous. Discernment quietly recognizes where peace lives and where it has departed. Fear traps the heart. Discernment frees it to walk confidently with God. So do not silence the inner conviction that has carried you through seasons of uncertainty. Honor it, protect it, nurture it through prayer, humility, and unwavering trust in God. The same God who rescued you from dangers you never fully saw is still walking ahead of you, clearing paths you have not yet traveled, exposing traps before your feet reach them, and proving again and again that when He places discernment within a willing heart, it becomes one of the greatest expressions of His faithful protection. There is a reason the greatest battles in your life were not always loud. Some of the most dangerous moments arrived wrapped in comfort instead of conflict. They did not announce themselves with obvious evil. They came dressed as opportunity. They sounded like encouragement. They looked like loyalty. They felt familiar enough to lower your guard. That is how deception works. It rarely introduces itself as destruction. It presents itself as something you believe you need. It whispers, "This is the answer you've been praying for." It tells you to move quickly before you have time to seek God. Convinces you that urgency is wisdom and impatience is faith. But God is never threatened by time. He does not rush you into decisions that could permanently wound your spirit. When He is leading, there is clarity beneath the pressure. There is peace beneath the uncertainty. There is a quiet confidence that does not depend on perfect circumstances. The enemy of your purpose wanted you to mistake emotional excitement for divine direction, but God interrupted the illusion before it became your reality. That interruption frustrated you then. But today you can see it for what it truly was. It was not delay. It was deliverance wearing the clothes of disappointment. You have asked yourself countless questions during the quiet hours of the night. Why did that friendship suddenly collapse? Why did that person become cold without explanation? Why did everything change when I stayed faithful to what God was showing me? Those questions have echoed through your heart because betrayal always leaves behind unanswered sentences. It is painful when someone you trusted becomes someone you no longer recognize. It is painful when the people who once celebrated your presence begin criticizing your boundaries. It is painful when your kindness is interpreted as weakness. until you finally decide to protect your peace. Yet, consider this carefully. If someone only values you while you ignore God's guidance, were they ever walking beside your purpose? If your obedience causes people to leave, perhaps they were connected to the version of you that God was calling out of, not the person He is shaping you into today. Sometimes the greatest evidence that God is transforming your life is that certain people no longer feel comfortable traveling with you. They cannot manipulate someone who now seeks God before seeking approval. They cannot distract someone who has learned to recognize the difference between noise and truth. They cannot control someone whose confidence is rooted in God's direction rather than human applause. Never underestimate how expensive discernment can become. It will cost you invitations that everybody else accepts without hesitation. It will cost you relationships that look permanent. It will cost you moments where people accuse you of arrogance simply because you refuse to ignore what God placed in your spirit. There will be seasons when standing with discernment feels like standing completely alone. Others will gather around what appears successful, while you quietly walk in another direction, carrying nothing except the conviction God has placed within you. That loneliness can tempt you to question yourself. It can whisper, what if you are wrong? What if you are throwing away something extraordinary? But God is not asking you to gamble with your future. He is asking you to trust the one who already knows the end from the beginning. Your responsibility has never been to understand every hidden detail. Your responsibility is to remain close enough to God that His wisdom becomes louder than your fear of missing out. Every time you choose His guidance over popular opinion, your spiritual vision becomes sharper. Every act of obedience strengthens your ability to recognize His direction the next time uncertainty appears. There are wounds that never reached your heart because God stopped them long before they found you. You may never know the conversations that happen behind closed doors. You may never discover the plans that quietly failed because God intervened without announcing His presence. You may never hear about the opportunities that disappeared because He removed people whose intentions were never pure. We often celebrate the blessings we can see, yet how often do we thank God for the disasters we never experienced? How many unseen dangers has He already turned away while you were sleeping? How many wrong paths quietly disappeared before your feet could follow them? You have praised Him for open doors, but perhaps some of His greatest acts of mercy came through doors that never opened at all. The miracle was not always receiving something new. Sometimes the miracle was being prevented from receiving something that would have stolen your joy, your integrity, your peace, and your future. That is the quiet power of God's protection. It often leaves no visible evidence except the simple fact that you are still standing. Do not confuse surviving with merely existing. God did not preserve your life so you could spend the rest of your days imprisoned by suspicion, bitterness, or fear. Discernment is not an invitation to build walls around your heart until no one can enter. It is an invitation to walk with wisdom while remaining anchored in compassion. Betrayal can make people believe that everyone carries hidden motives. Pain can convince them that love itself is dangerous. But God does not heal you by replacing trust with constant anxiety. He heals you by teaching you where your trust truly belongs. When your confidence rests in people alone, disappointment can shatter your world. When your confidence rests first in God, even painful betrayals cannot destroy the foundation beneath your feet. People may fail you, misunderstand you, or abandon you, but God remains unchanged. His wisdom does not fluctuate with emotions. His protection does not expire when circumstances become complicated. His presence does not disappear because others chose deception instead of honesty. That is why your future is still secure. It is not secured by perfect relationships or flawless decisions. It is secured by the faithful hand of the God who continues to guide every willing heart. So stop looking backwards with the desperate hope of finding acceptance from those who never understood your calling. Stop replaying every conversation, wondering whether you should have ignored the warning just to keep temporary peace. That chapter has already answered its own question. Your discernment saved you, even if your emotions have not fully caught up with that truth yet. Every painful separation carried a lesson that refined your spirit. Every lonely season trained you to hear God's voice above the endless opinions surrounding you. Every disappointment stripped away another illusion until only truth remained. You are not weaker because you walked away. You are wiser. You are not broken because some people refuse to understand you. You are becoming stronger because your identity is no longer chained to their approval. The same God who awakened discernment within you is still leading your steps today. He has not finished revealing what He protected you from. And He has not finished preparing what He has protected you for. One day, you will look across the distance between who you were and who you have become. And you will realize that the greatest miracle was not simply escaping destruction. The greatest miracle was that God transformed every attempted betrayal into another reason for your faith to grow deeper, your courage to become stronger, and your heart to walk forward with unshakable confidence, knowing that no scheme is greater than His wisdom, and no hidden trap can overcome a life that remains surrendered to His perfect guidance. There comes a moment when you stop asking God to explain every painful separation and begin thanking Him for every unseen rescue. That shift changes everything. At first, you mourn what was lost because your heart only sees the empty chair, the silent phone, the broken promise, the opportunity that disappeared just when you thought it would change your life. But God sees what your emotions cannot. He sees the destination of every path before the first step is taken. He knows where every conversation is leading before the first word is spoken. He understands the true intention behind every smile long before it reaches your eyes. What you call the painful ending, He called the necessary rescue. What you called abandonment, He called repositioning. What you called confusion, He called protection in progress. If God had allowed every person to remain in your life simply because you loved them, your future would have been crowded with people who admired your potential but quietly opposed your purpose. Love without discernment can become a prison. Compassion without wisdom can become exploitation. Loyalty without God's direction can become bondage. That is why God sometimes removes people you were praying to keep. Not because He delights in your pain, but because He refuses to let temporary emotions destroy an eternal purpose. You must also recognize that discernment is not only about identifying dangerous people. It is about recognizing dangerous versions of yourself. There was a time when loneliness could have convinced you to settle for anyone who offered attention. There was a season when exhaustion could have tempted you to accept shortcuts that looked harmless but would have slowly eroded your integrity. There were moments when frustration whispered, Compromise just this once. No one will know. But God knew. Before anyone else could see the battle, He was already confronting it within your heart. He was not only saving you from the intentions of others, He was saving you from decisions you would have regretted for years. Sometimes the greatest enemy is not standing outside the door. Sometimes it is the impatience growing quietly within. Sometimes it is the desire to be understood at any cost. Sometimes it is the craving for immediate relief instead of lasting peace. God loves you enough to confront what could destroy you from the inside before He confronts what threatens you from the outside. His guidance is never limited to external dangers. He refines your motives, purifies your desires, and strengthens your character until your choices begin reflecting His wisdom rather than your impulses. Do not underestimate the strength it took to obey God when nothing around you made sense. People often celebrate visible victories, but heaven also sees the unseen battles that never become public. Heaven saw you lying awake while everyone else slept, wrestling with decisions that carried enormous consequences. Heaven saw you choosing silence when you could have defended yourself with anger. Heaven saw you walking away from situations that promised temporary satisfaction but would have left permanent wounds. Heaven saw the tears that never appeared before anyone else. Heaven saw every moment you felt isolated because you refused to betray what God had placed in your spirit. Those victories may never receive applause from the world, but they have shaped your life more profoundly than many achievements others admire. The strongest people are not always those who speak the loudest or move the fastest. Often they are the ones who quietly remain faithful when compromise would have been easier. They understand that a clear conscience before God is worth more than the approval of a crowd that changes its opinion with every passing season. The enemy hoped your disappointments would make you distrust God, but instead they taught you to depend on Him more deeply than ever before. That is the outcome darkness never expected. Every betrayal was supposed to harden your heart, yet God used it to deepen your wisdom. Every rejection was supposed to convince you that you were forgotten, yet God transformed it into evidence that your identity could never be determined by the opinions of people. Every false accusation was supposed to silence your confidence, yet it became another reminder that truth does not lose its power simply because lies become louder for a season. Remember this whenever doubt tries to return. Deception often has a microphone, but truth has endurance. Lies may spread quickly, but they cannot permanently erase what God has established. Those who misjudged you may never apologize. Those who misunderstood your motives may never admit they were wrong. Do not build your peace upon receiving explanations that may never come. Build your peace upon the certainty that God knows every hidden detail, every private conversation, every distorted story, and every motive that has never been spoken aloud. His understanding is complete even when yours is not. Now lift your eyes beyond what you survived and look toward what God is preparing. Discernment was never meant to leave you standing forever at the edge of yesterday's pain. It was given so you could walk into tomorrow with greater wisdom, stronger faith, and unshakable confidence in God's guidance. The same inner conviction that warned you before will continue to guide you into places of genuine peace. It will help you recognize relationships built on honesty instead of manipulation. It will lead you toward opportunities that do not require you to sacrifice your integrity. It will remind you that what comes from God never demands that you abandon the values He has written upon your heart. So refuse to let fear disguise itself as wisdom. Refuse to let bitterness pretend to be discernment. Keep your heart open to God's leading, but close to the lies that tell you your best days disappeared with your greatest disappointments. They did not. You are standing at the threshold of a new season where your sensitivity to God's voice is stronger than your sensitivity to human pressure. And when that becomes true, no betrayal can permanently derail your purpose. No hidden scheme can overpower God's protection. And no darkness can overcome the life of someone who has learned that the safest place in this world is not where everything feels easy, but where every step is guided by the faithful hand of God. There will come a day when the questions that have haunted your mind will no longer control your heart. You have spent so much energy asking, why did this happen to me? Why did they betray me? Why did they smile while secretly hoping I would fail? Why did God allow me to love people who eventually wounded me? Those questions are understandable, but they are not where your future lives. Your future is not hidden inside yesterday's explanations. It is hidden inside today's obedience. God is not calling you to become an investigator of every painful memory. He is calling you to become a guardian of your heart. There are answers you may never receive because they would not heal you even if you had them. Some people will never confess what they intended. Some will rewrite history to protect their image. Others will convince themselves they did nothing wrong. If your peace depends on their honesty, you will remain trapped by people who have already walked away. But when your peace depends on God, you become free even without an apology. Freedom begins the moment you stop waiting for those who hurt you to validate your pain and start allowing God to restore what betrayal tried to steal. The people who walked away do not determine the value of your life. The God who preserved your life does. He did not rescue you merely so you could survive another day. He rescued you because your story is still unfolding, and your purpose is greater than the pain that attempted to define you. Do not be ashamed that your heart became more careful. There is a difference between becoming cautious through wisdom and becoming cold through fear. God is not asking you to abandon compassion. He is teaching you to stop confusing compassion with surrendering your discernment. You can forgive without giving harmful people unlimited access. You can wish others well without returning to places where your peace was repeatedly destroyed. You can pray for those who misunderstood you without allowing their opinions to become the foundation of your identity. Many people believe love requires the absence of boundaries, but that is not wisdom. God never intended your kindness to become permission for others to exploit your generosity. He never intended your patience to become an invitation for continual disrespect. Every boundary established through His wisdom protects something precious. It protects your peace, your integrity, your purpose, your calling, and the quiet confidence He has been patiently building within you. Never apologize for protecting what God Himself has been shaping. The same discernment that led you away from danger will also teach you how to recognize people who genuinely celebrate your growth instead of secretly resenting it. God is not only separating you from what harms you, He is preparing you for what reflects His goodness. Think about how many moments could have ended differently if God had remained silent. One conversation could have altered the course of your future. One impulsive decision could have led you into years of regret. One wrong agreement could have placed chains upon dreams that God intended to flourish. Yet every time destruction quietly approached, God's wisdom reached you first. Sometimes it arrived as an unexplained hesitation. Sometimes it came as a loss of peace that refused to disappear. Sometimes it appeared through unexpected delays that frustrated every plan you had carefully arranged. Looking back, you can now recognize that those interruptions were not obstacles to your destiny. They were evidence that your destiny mattered enough for God to intervene. His protection was never random. Every closed door carried intention. Every delayed answer carried wisdom. Every painful separation carried hidden mercy. Even the seasons that felt unbearably lonely were accomplishing something greater than you realized. God was teaching you that His presence could sustain you when every other source of security disappeared. He was proving that His guidance remains dependable when human promises collapse. He was strengthening a confidence that no betrayal could permanently destroy because it was rooted in Him rather than in circumstances. Now you stand stronger than the version of yourself that first entered the storm. Not because life became easier, but because your vision became clearer. You no longer measure success by how many people applaud you. You measure it by whether your heart remains aligned with God's direction. You no longer chase every opportunity that shines brightly for a moment. You seek what carries lasting peace. You no longer fear missing what was never meant for you, because you have learned that what God truly prepares for your life cannot be stolen by another person's deception or delayed by another person's betrayal. What belongs to you under His guidance will arrive at the right time without requiring you to abandon your integrity to obtain it. That truth changes the way you live. It frees you from desperate striving. It frees you from unhealthy comparisons. It frees you from constantly looking over your shoulder in fear that someone else has taken your place. God does not guide through panic. He guides through wisdom. He does not build lasting purpose upon confusion. He builds it upon trust. The life He is leading you into will not require you to silence the discernment He has cultivated within you. Instead, every step forward will confirm that listening to His voice was never the reason you lost anything valuable. It was the reason you kept what mattered most. So as you move forward, let your heart remember this truth whenever doubt tries to return. The same God who awakened discernment within you has not stopped watching over your life. He still sees the conversations you have not heard, the intentions you cannot yet recognize, the crossroads you have not yet reached, and the victories you cannot yet imagine. He is already present in the tomorrow that seems uncertain to you today. Nothing surprises Him. Nothing escapes His wisdom. No hidden scheme is greater than His protection. No deception is more convincing than His truth. No darkness is stronger than His light. Walk boldly, not because you understand every detail, but because you know the one who holds every detail in His hands. Refuse to envy those who ignored God's warnings, because appearances never reveal the whole story. Refuse to regret every closed door, because some of God's greatest acts of love are the opportunities He never allows you to enter. Lift your head without bitterness. Strengthen your heart without pride. Continue seeking God with humility, because discernment is not a reward for perfection. It is a gift entrusted to those who choose to remain close to Him. And one day, when you look back across every betrayal, every lonely night, every false accusation, every unexpected delay, and every painful goodbye, you will not simply remember what you lost. You will stand in quiet awe of the countless dangers you never saw, the traps you never entered, the destruction that never reached your doorstep, and the life you are still living, because again and again, when your eyes could not see, when your emotions could not understand, and when the world insisted you were making the wrong choice, God faithfully placed discernment within your spirit, and that discernment saved your life. The journey that brought you to this moment was never meaningless. Every tear you tried to hide, every night you lay awake searching for answers, every betrayal that left your heart trembling, every false accusation that made you question your own worth, every goodbye you never expected to say, and every lonely season that felt too heavy to carry has been seen by God. Not a single moment escaped His attention. While you believed you were simply surviving another painful chapter, God was quietly preserving the future He designed for you. The people who walked away did not take your purpose with them. The opportunities that disappeared did not cancel your destiny. The lies spoken against you did not rewrite the truth that God declared over your life. What He has protected, no person can destroy. What He has established, no deception can overturn. So stop measuring your life by what you lost. Measure it by what God preserved. Measure it by the peace that remained when chaos surrounded you. Measure it by the strength that somehow continued growing after every disappointment. Measure it by the wisdom that now guards your heart. You are not standing here because you were stronger than everyone else. You are standing here because God's hand never left you, even when you could not feel it. Every warning He placed in your spirit, every moment He unsettled your heart before a wrong decision, every relationship He quietly removed, and every closed door that once frustrated you has become another testimony that His protection is always wiser than your understanding. Do not fear what lies ahead. The same God who guided you through yesterday's hidden dangers is already waiting in tomorrow. He is not reacting to your future. He is already there, preparing the path before your feet arrive. That means you do not have to live in anxiety. You do not have to become consumed by suspicion. You do not have to spend your days looking over your shoulder, wondering where the next betrayal will come from. Keep your eyes on God. Stay humble before Him. Guard your heart without hardening it. Let your discernment remain sharp, but let your faith become even sharper. Trust that if He could reveal what your eyes could not see before, He will continue to guide you through every season that is still ahead. Why does God keep you alive after 60? My friend, this is not a question of age, but a question of divine intention. When you wake up each morning, when you open your eyes and see the sunlight touching your face, that is not by accident. That is the voice of God saying, I still have something for you to do. Every breath you take beyond 60 is a declaration that your purpose has not ended. It means the hand of God is still upon you. It means you are not finished. You are being refined. You may look at your hands and see wrinkles. You may feel the slowing of your body. But let me tell you something. God never measures your usefulness by your youth. He measures it by your willingness. You are not alive today because of luck or because medicine kept you here. You are alive because God still has a purpose for you that no one else can fulfill. The reason God keeps you alive after 60 is because He still wants to speak through you, bless through you, love through you, and show His power through your story. So many people, when they grow older, begin to believe that life is behind them. They say, my strength is gone. My best days are over. But God looks at you and says, no, I am not finished with you yet. God keeps you alive after 60 because He wants to use your wisdom, your scars, your battles, your victories, your pain, your experience to bless others who are still learning how to walk with Him. You carry something sacred within you, something that was not meant to die when your youth faded. God keeps you because you are a vessel of His timeless truth. There are people who needed you to survive. There are souls that would never know strength if you had given up. You see, when you are young, you live by energy. But when you are older, you live by wisdom. And God uses the wisdom of those who have walked long with Him to shape the future of those who are still finding their way. You are a teacher now. You are a carrier of the fire of experience. God does not discard vessels that have carried His light for decades. He refines them so the light burns even brighter. Think of it, every hardship you endured, every prayer you whispered in the dark, every tear you shed when no one was watching, all of it was shaping your spirit. It was God preparing you for a time like this. God keeps you alive after 60 because He wants you to tell the world that He is faithful. You are a living testimony that even after storms, even after failures, even after betrayals, even after loss, God still sustains. When you were young, you ran ahead, you dreamed, you built, you planned. But now, after 60, God slows you down, not because He has abandoned you, but because He wants you to listen more deeply. He wants to reveal Himself to you in quietness. The young chase success, the mature seek meaning. And meaning is where God speaks. You are alive because your spirit has reached a level where God can now trust you with deeper truth. He has seen you rise and fall, and yet you still bow before Him. That kind of faith cannot be taught. It is forged through years. That's why He keeps you. Do you know what pleases God most? A heart that still beats for Him after all these years. Many people start with fire, but they lose their flame along the way. Yet here you are, still talking to God, still seeking His voice, still thanking Him for the simple things. That is why you are still alive, because your relationship with God has matured beyond noise and pride. It has become pure, silent love. God keeps alive the ones who know how to walk humbly with Him, for they are His witnesses in a noisy world. Maybe you have wondered, why am I still here when so many of my friends have gone? God's timing is perfect. Some He calls early, others He keeps longer, not as a punishment, but as purpose. He has left you as a lamp for your family, as a voice of reason for the younger generation, as a guardian of spiritual wisdom in your home. Your survival is not coincidence. It is divine preservation. God keeps those whom He still needs to use. The world may not notice you anymore. Society often celebrates youth and forgets the elderly. But God's kingdom is not like the world. In the world, people retire at 60. In God's plan, you are fired at 60. Your spirit is renewed. Your assignment is refined. You are called to speak truth that no one else dares to speak. You are called to walk in patience when others are restless. You are called to demonstrate peace when others panic. God keeps you alive to remind the world that true strength is not in muscle, but in faith. There's someone watching you right now, your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors. They see how you face each day. They see that you still give thanks, that you still smile, that you still help others even when you have your own needs. You are preaching with your life. You are teaching without words. That is why God keeps you alive. Because your very presence is ministry. Your consistency is faith in motion. And let me tell you, age does not limit your blessing, it expands it. The older you become, the more space God has to show His faithfulness. You have seen the seasons change, and yet you have not been consumed. You have seen storms pass, and yet you are still standing. That alone makes you a miracle. God keeps you alive because you are a walking revelation of His power to sustain. Some people think their worth diminishes after 60. But in truth, that is when your spirit becomes most valuable, because now you have learned what truly matters. You no longer chase approval. You no longer bow to fear. You no longer measure your success by what people say. You have found peace in God, and that peace is what others are desperately searching for. God keeps you because you are now ready to be a guide. Your gray hair is not a sign of decline. It is a crown of endurance. Each line on your face tells a story of how God delivered you. Each ache in your body is a reminder of how He carried you. God is glorified in your survival. He is glorified in your resilience. When the young see that you are still strong in faith, despite the passage of time, they learn what it means to truly walk with God. You are a lighthouse for those lost in the fog of modern life. Think about this. How many times could death have taken you? How many close calls? How many hospital visits? How many nights you thought you wouldn't see the morning? Yet here you are. That is not chance, that is preservation. God looked at you and said, "Not yet. My work in you is not complete." So stop asking why you are still here and start asking, what more does God want to do through me? God does not count your years. He counts your purpose. If there is still someone who needs your counsel, if there is still a heart that needs your forgiveness, if there is still a soul that needs your prayer, then your mission is not done. You may not run as fast as before, but your prayer can reach farther than your feet ever could. Your words can touch hearts your hands can no longer hold. Your wisdom can heal wounds your eyes may never see. God keeps you alive because the world still needs what He planted in you. When you were younger, your strength carried you. Now, God carries you. When you were younger, you believed you could do everything. Now, you know only God can. That humility is what gives your life depth and beauty. You have reached an age where pride no longer rules, and that makes you truly powerful in spirit. God keeps those who have learned to depend fully on Him, because they are the pillars that uphold the faith of generations. Every day you live beyond 60 is a reward of grace. You have walked through fire and come out refined. You have faced loss but never lost hope. You have buried dreams but found peace in God's will. And that is the secret of spiritual maturity. To still trust when things no longer make sense. God keeps alive those whose faith can no longer be shaken by circumstances. You see, the younger ones often pray for miracles, but you are the miracle. You are proof that time does not defeat those who trust in God. You are proof that faith can outlast pain and love can outlive sorrow. You are proof that the Spirit does not grow old. Your life is the evidence of God's promise that those who lean on Him shall be renewed day by day. And do not think your days are small. Even if you cannot travel, even if you cannot do what you once did, your prayer still moves mountains. Your quiet presence still changes atmospheres. When you bless someone, God listens. When you intercede for your family, God acts. You are a spiritual anchor for your bloodline. Your survival keeps doors open for those who come after you. You are not just living. You are covering your lineage under God's favor. Maybe you feel forgotten. Maybe no one thanks you anymore. But heaven knows your name. God watches every act of kindness you still perform. Every word of encouragement you speak. Every time you lift someone's spirit when you could have stayed silent. These small things are great in His eyes. God keeps you because you are still sowing seeds of eternity, even when no one notices. At 60 and beyond, you are not meant to fade. You are meant to shine differently. The light of your youth burns bright and fast. The light of your maturity burns steady and deep. It comforts rather than dazzles. It warms rather than blinds. God keeps that kind of light burning because the world needs it. In an age of noise and chaos, you carry peace. In an age of pride and confusion, you carry clarity. You are a reminder that stillness is not weakness, it is strength refined by time. Do not envy the young. Many of them are lost in pursuit of things that do not last. You have something they do not have: perspective. You have seen enough to know that wealth without peace is nothing, that success without purpose is empty. God keeps you alive to remind the world of eternal truths that never age. You are a living sermon. Your wrinkles are sacred words written by time. When you reach the later years of your life, you begin to see what most people cannot see. You start to notice the invisible hand of God that has been guiding you through every decade, through every joy and every heartbreak. And when you look back, you realize that nothing was random. Every event, every person, every delay was part of the divine design. You were never just surviving time. You were being shaped for a season that only maturity could understand. God keeps you alive after 60 because now your eyes are clear enough to see what truly matters, and your heart is deep enough to hold what others cannot yet comprehend. In your youth, you wanted to change the world. You fought, you worked, you built, you dreamed. But now, in this sacred stage of life, God invites you to change something greater. Your inner world, He calls you to peace. He calls you to stillness. He calls you to influence not through speed, but through spiritual presence. The older you become, the closer you get to the essence of who you were created to be: a soul aligned with God, not distracted by the noise of the world. That is why you are still here, because God wants the world to see what peace looks like in human form. peace that only comes from decades of walking with Him. You are not here by accident. You are not a leftover of time. You are a masterpiece in progress. Think of a tree planted long ago. When it was young, it grew fast and wild, stretching its branches in every direction. But as it aged, its roots went deeper and its fruit grew sweeter. The same is true of you. The fruit of your life, the patience, the compassion, the calm wisdom could not have existed when you were young. God had to let you live long enough for your spirit to ripen. He keeps you alive because your fruit is needed now more than ever. You see, the world is rushing, spinning, drowning in restlessness. People chase money, fame, pleasure, power, but they have no peace. And then they meet you, a person who has lived long enough to know that all of that fades. Your calmness speaks louder than their ambition. Your gratitude convicts their complaints. Your humility corrects their arrogance. You are the silent sermon of God's truth. That is why He keeps you alive, to be a mirror of His eternal nature in a generation that has forgotten what holiness looks like. There is a sacred authority that only comes with age. You cannot buy it. You cannot fake it. It comes from the decades of talking to God when no one was listening, from the nights of pain that drove you to prayer, from the disappointments that purified your faith. When you speak now, your words carry weight because they come from experience with God. That is what the world needs. That is what families need. That is what children need. A voice that has walked through life's fire and still speaks of God's goodness. Do not waste these years worrying about what you can no longer do. Rejoice in what you can now see. You can see through deception. You can see through pretense. You can discern truth from lies because you have lived through enough to know what is real. That is why God keeps you, because He needs witnesses who have lived long enough to confirm that His promises are true. He needs elders who can say with conviction, I have seen the goodness of God in the land of the living. The strength of your youth built your life, but the wisdom of your age will bless generations. God has kept you alive, not to merely exist, but to pour out what He has poured into you. Every story you carry, every lesson you learned through pain, every revelation you received in silence, it is all meant to be given. You are a vessel of divine memory. When you speak, you remind others that God never fails, that He provides, that He restores, that He heals, that He remembers those who remember Him. Do not believe the lie that you are finished. The truth is, you are entering the most impactful stage of your purpose. God saves the deepest assignments for those who have been seasoned by time. The young may carry strength, but the wise carry vision. God does not need your speed now. He needs your stability. He does not need your energy. He needs your endurance. You have become like the mountain that does not move when storms come. Your faith is no longer a flame. It is a foundation. And on that foundation, others will stand. Sometimes, when you sit alone and the house is quiet, you may wonder if your life still matters. Listen closely, it does. Every time you pray, the heavens take notice. Every time you thank God for another day, it shifts the atmosphere. Every time you speak life over your children or whisper blessings over those you love, invisible forces move. You may not see it, but your words still carry power. God keeps your voice alive because your prayers still build walls of protection around those you love. And even if your body feels weak, your spirit is strong. God measures you not by physical strength, but by spiritual endurance. When others see wrinkles, God sees warriors. When others see aging, God sees authority. You have authority in prayer, authority in faith, authority in silence. You can change the course of your family's destiny by one sincere conversation with God. That is why He keeps you, because your intercession still matters. You are like the roots of a tree. You may not be visible, but everything above you stands because you are still there. The family you built, the people you mentored, the kindness you gave, they are all growing because of you. Without roots, trees fall. Without elders, families crumble. Without wisdom, nations lose their way. God keeps you alive after 60 because your presence keeps balance in the spiritual structure of those around you. You are not a background character. You are the foundation. And let me tell you something else. Age is not decline, it is revelation. The older you get, the more clearly you can see the pattern of God's hand weaving through your years. You start to realize that even your mistakes had a purpose. The paths you thought were detours were divine direction. The people who left you were part of God's pruning process. The things you lost made space for what truly matters. God lets you live long enough to see how beautifully He has written your story. After 60, God draws you closer to Himself. The noise of the world begins to fade, and the voice of eternity grows louder. You begin to crave peace over pleasure, depth over drama, truth over attention. That is not boredom. That is awakening. Your soul is detaching from the temporary and preparing for the eternal. You are not dying, you are transforming. God keeps you alive to taste the sweetness of divine nearness before you return to Him. He wants you to experience what it feels like to walk earth as one whose heart already belongs to eternity. You are not forgotten. You are favored. The breath that fills your lungs today is not wasted. It is sacred air chosen for you by God Himself. Every beat of your heart is permission from heaven saying, continue. I still delight in your life. When others slow down, you rise in spirit. When others complain about aging, you bless God for wisdom. That difference, that gratitude, is what separates those who merely exist from those who live with purpose. And do not fear the future. God, who carried you through childhood, youth, and middle age, will not abandon you now. He does not invest decades of care in you only to discard you at the end. No, He finishes what He starts. And when God keeps someone alive, it is because they are still part of His unfolding plan. The divine writer has not yet written the last line of your story. There is still a chapter to be lived, one filled with peace, influence, and spiritual fulfillment. The world may measure life by years, but God measures it by impact. You may not have the speed to run anymore, but you have the insight to lead. You may not hold the tools, but you hold the truth. The time you live in now is not a sunset. It is a sunrise for your spirit. Because now your faith is pure, stripped of pride, and filled with understanding. God keeps you to shine as proof that life lived with Him never fades, it only grows deeper. There is a mystery in longevity that few understand. When God extends your days, it is not merely to let you exist longer on the earth. It is to let your spirit ripen for eternity. The later years of your life are not wasted years. They are sacred years. They are the time when your spirit learns to listen more than it speaks. When you begin to understand that every moment of breath is a classroom where God is still teaching you. If you are still here, it is because God still finds joy in your presence on this earth. It is because your life still carries divine fragrance that blesses others without you even realizing it. After 60, life becomes more about essence than activity. You may not do as much, but who you have become speaks louder than anything you could ever do. The world measures life by productivity, but God measures it by purity. By the purity of your heart, by the sincerity of your gratitude, by the gentleness of your spirit. You have reached a point where you no longer chase noise. You embody peace. That is why God keeps you alive. Because this world still needs the quiet strength that you carry. You are not in the way of the younger generation. You are their way forward. You are the silent wisdom that gives shape to their dreams. There is a beauty that comes only with age. A beauty that cannot be painted or manufactured. It is the glow of peace that shines from someone who has walked through both storms and sunlight, who has seen both failure and restoration, and still smiles. That glow is not cosmetic, it is divine. It is the light of a soul that has wrestled with pain and found rest in God's will. That light is precious, and that is why God keeps you alive, to illuminate others who are still stumbling in darkness. You have entered the age where your greatest victories are invisible. They are not the kind that make headlines or earn applause. They are victories of patience, victories of forgiveness, victories of quiet endurance. You win when you let go of bitterness. You win when you stop explaining yourself to people who will never understand. You win when you wake up each morning and say, God, thank you for another chance to see your mercy. These are not small victories, they are eternal ones. God keeps alive those who have learned how to win in silence. You may not realize it, but your spirit carries authority now. When you pray, your words carry more weight because they come from decades of walking through fire with God. When you bless someone, heaven listens. When you forgive someone, chains break. You have become a channel of divine strength because you have been refined by time. God keeps you alive because He can now trust you with deeper influence, the kind that transforms without needing attention. Do not fear slowing down. Slowing down is not the same as stopping. It is the rhythm of divine wisdom. When God slows your body, He awakens your spirit. He gives you time to notice what others overlook. The birds in the morning, the quiet laughter of children, the peace of a calm evening. In these small moments, God whispers eternal truths. You have reached the stage where He speaks to you not through thunder, but through stillness. You are being drawn closer, not farther. You are being prepared, not finished. Your later years are God's masterpiece of patience and grace. You are the proof that faith is not just for the young and hopeful. It is for the aged and faithful. When you continue to believe, Even when you have seen so much pain, your faith becomes sacred fire. It warms others. It restores balance to a generation that has forgotten how to trust. You are the living memory of God's goodness, and that memory is a shield for those who come after you. That is why you are still here, because your very existence keeps the flame of remembrance alive. Sometimes God keeps you alive because someone you love still needs your prayer. Maybe there is a child who has lost their way, or a family member whose heart has grown cold. God keeps you as their covering, their shield in the unseen realm. Your prayer is the bridge between their chaos and God's mercy. You may not even know it, but your words, your faith, your very presence are protecting leaves around you. God uses the faithful hearts of elders as anchors for generations. And when you look at yourself and think, I am weak, know this: your weakness is God's strength on display. You no longer have to prove anything. You no longer have to earn anyone's validation. You are already validated by time and by faith. The same God who sustained you through the storms of youth will sustain you through the calm of maturity. He does not discard those who have served Him. He crowns them with purpose in their later years. After 60, your focus shifts from achievement to alignment. It's no longer about how much you can do, but how deeply you can walk with God. Your pace may slow, but your depth increases. You start to understand that every sunrise is a sermon, every breath is a blessing, and every heartbeat is a reminder that God is near. You stop asking why and start saying thank you. That shift is spiritual wisdom. That surrender is holiness. That peace is power. There is a generation behind you that does not understand patience. They live in a world of instant gratification. They want everything fast: success, recognition, pleasure. But you have learned the sacred rhythm of waiting. You know that God's timing is never late. You have learned that miracles are born in the soil of delay. You have learned that real strength is not loud, it is steady. You are the teacher of divine timing. You are the living proof that waiting on God never ends in regret. Your later years are not a season of retreat, they are a season of revelation. God reveals things to the mature heart that the young cannot yet bear. He opens your understanding to see the meaning behind your past, to see the divine logic behind your pain, and to recognize the beauty of every unanswered prayer. You begin to see that what didn't happen for you was never rejection. It was protection. That what you lost was not punishment. It was preparation. These revelations come only to those who have walked long enough with God to trust His silence. You have reached a stage where your peace becomes your power. You no longer react to everything. You no longer chase explanations. You have learned that not every battle is yours to fight. You have learned that some victories come not by movement, but by stillness. When you choose peace over reaction, you become a vessel of divine calm. That calm is what the world needs now. That calm is why you are still alive. Because God uses you to demonstrate what true strength looks like. The truth is, age is God's way of revealing spiritual beauty. While the body fades, the soul grows luminous. The deeper your relationship with God becomes, the more radiant your spirit appears. People may see your years, but they feel your peace. They may see your wrinkles, but they sense your grace. The outer shell may change, but the inner light only intensifies. You have become a soul refined by time, and that radiance is why God keeps you. When you pray now, your prayer is no longer filled with demands. It is filled with gratitude. You no longer ask for much. You simply thank God for what is. That kind of gratitude attracts divine favor. Gratitude opens gates that complaints could never open. And as you live with a thankful heart, you begin to walk in quiet abundance. Everything around you may look ordinary, but inside, you carry peace that no wealth can buy. God keeps you alive so that the world can see that peace is the true measure of success. And remember, as long as God wakes you up, He still wants to walk with you. Do not underestimate the mornings you open your eyes and say, "Thank you." Each morning is a divine invitation to continue the conversation you have had with God for decades. You are not forgotten, you are cherished. You are not useless, you are purposeful. You are the continuation of God's faithfulness on display. So carry yourself with quiet dignity. You have nothing to prove, nothing to chase, nothing to fear. You are a soul anchored in eternity, walking through time with grace. The world may move fast, but you move deep. The world may change, but your faith remains the same. And every day you live, heaven records your endurance as worship. You are not living out of habit. You are living out of divine purpose. This is why God keeps you alive after 60, because your life is no longer about ambition. It is about alignment. It is no longer about running, but about resting in God's will. You have become a living psalm, a breathing prayer, a testimony of divine endurance. The world needs to see that kind of life. The life that shines quietly, the life that forgives easily, the life that loves freely, the life that glorifies God in everything. So walk boldly in your remaining days. Speak truth when others hide it. Show kindness when others forget it. Radiate peace when others lose it. For this is your divine purpose now, to reflect the eternal light of God in every space you enter. You are still alive because the world still needs to see what faith looks like when it matures, what love looks like when it endures, and what wisdom looks like when it walks hand in hand with God. Stop worrying. Stop pacing the floor at night. Stop replaying every scenario in your mind, wondering if you missed your chance, if you lost your moment, if your future somehow slipped through your fingers. My friend, you are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned in the wilderness of uncertainty. God already chose your doors. Before you ever arrived at the intersection of confusion, before you ever faced the closed gate, before the opportunity ever appeared in front of you, God already chose the door that belongs to you. There are moments when life feels like a hallway filled with locked doors. You try one handle and it doesn't move. You knock on another and no one answers. You pour your energy into one direction and it seems like every step forward is met with resistance. You start to wonder, did I make a mistake? Did I mishear God? Did I go the wrong way? But I tell you this today, not every closed door means rejection. Some doors are closed because they were never yours to open. God already chose the one that will open when the time is right. When you live under divine direction, nothing in your life is wasted. Every detour, every delay, every disappointment is secretly woven into the grand pattern of God's plan. You may think you are lost, but you are exactly where you need to be for God to reveal the next door. The key to peace is not in trying to force doors open. It's in trusting that God already selected the one that will lead you to your destiny. Worry is the language of those who believe they are alone. Faith is the language of those who know that God is working even in silence. When you worry, you are trying to control what only God can orchestrate. You are trying to write a script that has already been written by divine hands. God does not need your anxiety. He needs your trust. God does not respond to panic. He responds to peace. When you rest in His plan, the doors begin to move in your favor. There are people who spend their entire lives knocking on the wrong doors because they are too afraid to wait for the one God chose. They chase approval, positions, relationships, and opportunities that were never assigned to them. And when those doors slam shut, they fall into despair, not realizing that God was protecting them from entering a place that could destroy their peace, their purity, their purpose. Sometimes the door you wanted to open so badly was never meant to lead to your destiny. It was meant to teach you patience. Every closed door has a purpose. Every delay carries divine meaning. When you see nothing moving, it doesn't mean God has stopped working. It means He is positioning everything in the unseen realm for your arrival. God is not random. He is precise. He is intentional. He knows the exact moment your door should open, and no human hand, no demon, no system, no circumstance can shut what God has prepared for you. There are people right now worried about what others are getting. You see someone else's door opening, and you begin to question God's timing for your life. But remember this: just because someone else walked through their door doesn't mean yours is forgotten. The same God who opened their door is the same God who will open yours when your time comes. Don't compare seasons. Don't envy someone else's timing. The door God chose for you has your name written on it. It won't open for anyone else. Sometimes God keeps you in the hallway longer because He is still preparing you for what's behind the door. You may think you are ready, but God sees what you cannot see. He knows that if the door opens too soon, what's on the other side might crush you instead of crown you. So He hides the key until you are strong enough to handle the blessing. The delay is not denial, it's protection. Stop worrying about what you can't control. Stop questioning whether your prayers are working. Every word you've spoken in faith is stored in the heart of God. Every tear you've cried has watered the soil of your destiny. The door you're waiting for is not lost. It's simply under divine timing. When God decides it's time, no obstacle will stand in the way. You won't have to force it. You won't have to manipulate it. The door will open naturally, powerfully, and peacefully. Do you know what happens when you stop worrying? You create space for faith to breathe. Worry suffocates faith. It fills your mind with noise and your heart with fear. But faith whispers, God already chose. Faith tells you that your path is secure even when you can't see it. Faith reminds you that God's choices are always better than your own. You may not understand His ways, but you can trust His wisdom. There's a reason God tells us to be still. Not because He wants us to do nothing, but because He wants us to recognize that He is everything. When you're still, you allow His hand to move. When you stop forcing, you start flowing. God cannot pour His plan into a restless heart. He needs peace to plant His promises. And the moment you surrender your worry, the spiritual atmosphere around you begins to shift. There were times in your life when you thought the end had come, yet somehow you're still standing. That alone is proof that God's hand is on you. If He carried you through the last season, do you really think He will abandon you before the door opens? God doesn't lead you halfway and stop. He completes what He starts. The same God who guided you through the wilderness will walk you through the doorway into your promised place. Many people lose faith right before their door opens. They give up during the final stretch of testing. They allow the waiting to break their spirit. But I tell you this, your door is often closest when the pressure is the heaviest. When the darkness feels overwhelming, that's usually the moment before the light bursts through. The enemy always fights hardest when he knows the door is about to open. Don't collapse at the threshold. Stand firm. God's hand is already on the handle. You must learn to trust God's silence. When you can't hear Him, it doesn't mean He's absent. It means He's working in secret. God doesn't announce every move. He prepares it quietly. Just like a seed growing underground, your door is being built behind the scenes. You won't see the construction process, but one day you will stand before what God created and say, "Now I understand." Stop trying to predict which door is yours. Stop obsessing over what you think should happen. God's doors are not chosen by your logic, but by divine foresight. Sometimes the smallest, most overlooked opportunity becomes the doorway to your destiny. God delights in surprising His people. He hides greatness in places others dismiss. That's why you must stay faithful in the small things. The door you seek might appear where you least expect it. When you live under worry, you live under limitation. Worry keeps you trapped in what-if scenarios. Faith keeps you walking forward, even when the path is unclear. God didn't design you to live with tension and fear. He designed you to walk in peace. Every morning you wake up, you have a choice to rehearse your worry or to release it. If you release it, you give God permission to take full control. There are people God is preparing right now who have no idea what's about to unfold. You've been praying, fasting, waiting, and wondering when things will shift. You've felt unseen, unrecognized, forgotten. But what you don't realize is that your name is being whispered in places you've never been. Your door is being discussed in rooms you haven't entered yet. God is orchestrating meetings, aligning hearts, and moving systems in your favor. And when the moment comes, everything will happen suddenly. What took years to understand will come together in an instant. You'll step into the right place at the right time with the right people, and it will feel effortless. Not because of luck, but because it was chosen by God. That is the beauty of divine doors. They don't require you to fight your way in. They open naturally when heaven declares, no. So stop worrying about connections, positions, or recognition. The door God chose for you will not require compromise. It will not require you to pretend to be someone else. It will open because you stayed true to who you are in God. There are doors that open through manipulation, but they also close through exhaustion. But when God opens a door, He sustains it. His doors come with peace, not pressure. His blessings add no sorrow. You may not understand why you had to wait so long, why others passed you, why your plans fell apart, but God is building something better. He's not denying your dream. He's refining your direction. You wanted one door, but He's creating a corridor. You prayed for an opening, but He's designing an entire pathway. God doesn't think small. When He moves, He multiplies. The door God chose for you will not just bless you, it will bless others through you. Your testimony will become a doorway for others to find hope. That's why your journey took longer. It wasn't just about you. God was shaping your heart, building your character, preparing your spirit, so that when the door opens, you won't just enter. You'll lead others through. If you only knew how carefully God orchestrates your steps, you would never waste another minute worrying. Every person you meet, every delay you experience, every disappointment you face, it's all connected. God is weaving your story like a tapestry, one thread at a time. You can only see the back right now, full of knots and confusion. But when He turns it around, you'll see the beautiful picture He's been designing all along. The reason worry feels heavy is because it's a burden you were never meant to carry. You cannot control what only God can create. The moment you hand Him your worry, you begin to walk in freedom. You begin to live with a calm assurance that no matter what happens, God's choice for you is perfect. The door may not look like what you expected, but when it opens, it will feel like home. There are seasons when God will close every door just to test your faith. Not because He wants to hurt you, but because He wants to see if you trust Him beyond logic. When you can praise God, even when every door is locked, you activate a dimension of faith that moves mountains. God honors those who believe without seeing. He rewards those who wait without complaining. Your waiting season is not wasted. It is the training ground for your next level. Every time you choose peace over panic, you grow stronger. Every time you choose faith over fear, you build spiritual muscle. When the door opens, it won't just be an opportunity. It will be a promotion of your soul. You'll walk through with wisdom you didn't have before, with strength forged in the fire of waiting. Do not underestimate the power of divine timing. You can be in the right place at the wrong time and miss what was meant for you. But when God aligns your timing with His will, everything flows effortlessly. That's why you must stop rushing. Stop trying to accelerate what God is still preparing. He knows the exact second when your door should swing open. And when it does, it won't just open, it will stay open. God's doors come with divine favor that no man can revoke. You won't have to chase opportunity. Opportunity will chase you. You won't have to beg for recognition. Recognition will find you. You won't have to knock endlessly. The door will unlock itself at your arrival. Because what God chooses, He secures. There is something divine about the quiet seasons of life. The moments when everything seems still, when the phone doesn't ring, when the plans fall apart, and when the future feels uncertain. It's in those moments that God whispers the loudest. When you can't hear noise from the world, you can finally hear the voice of direction from the heavens. The silence is not emptiness, it is preparation. God speaks most clearly when you stop trying to make everything happen on your own. You must understand, God is not delaying you, He is developing you. The same hand that closes one door is the same hand writing your name on another. And when He finishes preparing that door, it will open without your effort, without your striving, without your exhaustion, because it was already chosen for you. There are people who think their future depends on their ability to plan. But no plan can outshine divine orchestration. You can study, you can prepare, you can position yourself. But when the hand of God moves, it moves beyond logic. When His favor decides to lift you, no human plan can explain it. You might not have the qualifications, but God will open the door anyway. You might not have the connections, but God will align the right hearts to favor you. You might not even feel ready, but God will make you ready in the moment. That is the mystery of divine selection. God chooses doors according to His wisdom, not your readiness. Do not be deceived by how things look right now. Just because a door seems locked does not mean it is lost. God sometimes lets you stand before a closed door to test the posture of your heart. Will you complain or will you trust? Will you panic or will you praise? Some of the greatest blessings are released not through striving, but through surrender. When you lift your hands and say, God, I trust your will, heaven begins to move in your favor. Worry keeps you in circles. Worship moves you forward. There are two kinds of people in life: those who force doors open and those who let God open them. The first kind often ends up exhausted, disappointed and broken because they entered through what wasn't theirs. The second kind lives with peace because they wait for what's divinely appointed. God's doors are not heavy when He opens them for you. They swing wide with grace. They carry the fragrance of peace, and they bring you into alignment with purpose. If a door brings anxiety, confusion, and chaos, it was likely not God's door. God's doors may require faith, but they never steal peace. You must learn to let go of your own timing. There is a divine rhythm to life that cannot be rushed. When God hides a door, He is protecting your destiny from premature exposure. Some opportunities look shiny, but are filled with traps. Some people appear ready to walk with you, but are secretly carrying poison. That's why God keeps certain doors invisible until your spirit matures enough to recognize what is real. If He opened everything too soon, the weight of the blessing would crush you. Maturity is what makes the miracle sustainable. When you see nothing happening, understand this: God is often working on the other side of the door. You cannot see it, but angels are moving, hearts are changing, and circumstances are aligning. God never forgets His promise. Even if you can't trace His hand, you can trust His heart. The divine doors of destiny are built in secret. While you are in the waiting, God is constructing what your eyes will one day see. Every silent day is a brick in the foundation of your breakthrough. Some of you are standing in front of a door right now that seems impossible to open. Every effort you've made has failed. Every attempt has ended in disappointment. But I tell you, stand still. Do not push, do not panic, do not lose faith. That door will not open by human force. It will open by divine command. When God says, no, the lock will fall off, the barrier will disappear, and the opportunity will unfold naturally. What you couldn't do in years will happen in a moment when God releases His favor. You may think you missed your chance, but God does not operate on human calendars. The door He chose for you has no expiration date, no mistake, no failure. No detour can cancel what God has ordained. Even if you took the long road, He can still bring you to the right place at the right time. His timing is not delayed. It is deliberate. The delay is often the disguise of divine perfection. Worry is like sand in the gears of your spirit. It grinds your peace and slows your progress. The moment you let it go, everything begins to move again. Faith lubricates the soul. Worry corrodes it. God wants your trust, not your tension. The proof of faith is rest. When you can sleep while the storm rages, when you can smile while others panic, when you can wait without complaining, that is when God knows you are ready for the next door. There are doors that require no effort because they respond to your obedience, not your strength. When your heart is aligned with God's will, even locked gates recognize your authority. The unseen realm knows who belongs where. That is why you never have to beg for what's yours. God already gave you spiritual ownership over the territory of your destiny. When the time comes, you will simply walk into it. God is not just choosing doors for you. He is also removing doors that lead to destruction. Every disappointment you faced was divine protection in disguise. The relationship that ended, the opportunity that vanished, the offer that slipped away, they were all doors that God closed to shield your soul. You may have cried, but one day you will thank Him for every rejection that saved you from ruin. The wisdom of God is greater than the emotions of man. Look at your life for a moment. How many times did you think something was the end, only to later realize it was a beginning in disguise? How many times did a closed door lead you to something far better? That is the fingerprint of God. He leads you through confusion into clarity. What looks like loss is often the path to lasting gain. God is not punishing you, He is preparing you. You are not walking through life randomly. There is a map written by God's own hand that guides your every step. Each door, each delay, each detour is part of that map. You cannot see it yet, but one day you will look back and marvel at how everything was perfectly connected. You will see how every season of silence prepared you for a season of sudden movement. The hand of God has never left you. It has simply been guiding you through shadows so that your faith could grow stronger than your sight. Do not despise the waiting season. It is sacred ground. Waiting is where faith is purified. Waiting is where trust matures. Waiting is where you stop trying to control and start learning to surrender. God doesn't test your patience to torment you. He tests it to strengthen you. Every minute you spend trusting Him builds your spiritual muscle. When your heart becomes still before Him, you become unstoppable. Many people want open doors, but are not willing to carry the responsibility that comes with them. God knows what every door demands. Some doors require humility. Some require discipline. Some require silence. If you are not trained in the waiting, the blessing may become a burden. That is why God prepares you privately before He promotes you publicly. The delay is the classroom of destiny. And remember, your door is not someone else's door. The path God chose for you is unique. Comparison is the thief of confidence. Do not measure your timeline by another's success. You are not behind. You are simply on a different schedule. The sunrise does not compete with the moon. Both shine at their appointed time. Likewise, your door will open when the divine clock strikes your hour. You must learn to discern divine timing. There is a rhythm in the unseen world. When your heart is aligned with God, you begin to sense it. You begin to move not by impulse, but by intuition inspired by God. You stop chasing and start flowing. You stop begging and start believing. That is when life becomes peaceful, even when uncertain, because you know that every door that is meant for you cannot miss you. Let me tell you this truth. God's doors never require compromise. If you have to sacrifice your values to enter, it is not from Him. If you have to manipulate to make it work, it is not yours. The door God opens will honor your integrity and elevate your spirit. It will stretch you, yes, but it will never stain your soul. You will know it's from Him because it will bring both challenge and calm, a mixture that only divine alignment produces. Sometimes God hides your door behind adversity. He does not place it on the mountain of comfort, but in the valley of testing. He does this so that only those who walk by faith can find it. The doorway to destiny is often disguised as difficulty. Those who run from hardship miss it, but those who stand firm discover it. That is why you cannot curse the challenge. It is often the key that reveals the next chapter of your calling. And when you finally walk through that door, remember, it is not the end, it is the beginning of another journey. God's doors lead to new dimensions, not destinations. He is an infinite creator, and His purpose for you expands with every step of obedience. Each door you pass through is an invitation to trust Him more deeply, to walk more boldly, to live more freely. There will come a time in your life when everything seems still, no messages, no movement, no visible change. You will look around and wonder if God has forgotten you. But that stillness is sacred. It is not the absence of God's activity. It is the quiet before divine acceleration. When God is silent, He is working in ways that your human understanding cannot perceive. The soil may look dry, but the roots are growing deeper. The field may look empty, but the seed is alive. That is how God works. He prepares beneath the surface before He reveals above it. The silence is not punishment, it is proof that something powerful is about to emerge. Stop worrying about when your door will open. The timing belongs to God, not you. Worrying about timing is like trying to control the sunrise. It doesn't matter how long you stare at the horizon. It will appear when it is meant to. You can't rush light. You can only prepare your heart to receive it. So instead of asking, when, start asking, how can I be ready when it comes? Because when your door finally opens, it will not wait for you to mature. It will expect you to already be prepared. Preparation is the secret key that fits the divine door. Sometimes God keeps the door closed until your motives are pure. You may think you are ready, but God looks deeper. He sees the thoughts that are still rooted in fear, ambitions still driven by pride, the desires still shaped by insecurity. He loves you too much to give you something that would destroy you from within. The door is delayed not because you are denied, but because you are being purified. When your heart aligns with His intention, what once seemed impossible will unfold effortlessly. Purity opens what power cannot. There are people who cry out for open doors, but still hold bitterness in their hearts. They want blessings while refusing to release offense. But God cannot pour new oil into a polluted vessel. You cannot walk through divine doors carrying the weight of old wounds. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the spiritual password that grants you access to higher levels. The moment you release resentment, the flow of favor begins again. God doesn't bless a closed heart. He blesses a surrendered one. Do you realize how specific God's plan is for your life? You are not one of many. You are one of one. The door He chose for you was designed before your birth. That means no one else can take it. No imitation can replace it. No competition can cancel it. What is yours is sealed in eternity. Even if others try to block your way, God can shift the entire atmosphere just to make space for you. He can remove people, rearrange systems, and rewrite outcomes to make sure you walk through what He chose. You don't need to chase opportunity when you are chosen by divinity. Worry often comes when we think the outcome depends on our strength. But destiny is not built on human ability. It is built on divine sovereignty. You don't have to control the process. You only need to trust the plan. God is too wise to make mistakes, too intentional to be random, and too loving to abandon what He created. Even when you cannot trace His hand, you can trust His heart. When everything around you feels unstable, His promise remains unmoved. Sometimes God will make the wrong doors look attractive just to see if you've learned to recognize His peace. Not every opportunity that shines is from heaven. Some doors lead to distraction, not destiny. The true door will carry peace, not pressure. It may challenge your comfort, but it will never compromise your character. When it's from God, it won't require manipulation. You won't have to force people to like you or beg for approval. God's favor creates natural alignment. What is meant for you gravitates towards you. If you want to see the power of divine timing, look at nature. The tree does not worry when its leaves fall because it knows spring will come. The river does not panic when it narrows because it trusts the flow. The stars do not argue with the darkness. They simply shine when it is their time. Everything in creation trusts the rhythm of God's design. You are no different. Your life is not out of sync. It is following a heavenly pattern. You may not see the full picture, but the hand of God never loses control. There are moments when God will let you knock and hear knocking. It's not to discourage you, it's to refine your persistence. Faith must grow strong enough to withstand silence. You cannot expect every door to open immediately. Some require endurance. When God sees that your trust can outlast disappointment, He knows you are ready for greater responsibility. Waiting teaches you what instant results never can. It teaches you dependence on God alone. You must understand that the door God opens will demand a version of you that worry cannot produce. Worry drains your spiritual energy, but faith multiplies it. Worry makes you reactive, but faith makes you proactive. Worry ties you to fear, but faith anchors you in purpose. The person who walks through the door of destiny must be grounded in peace, not panic. That is why God allows certain storms to train you to remain calm in chaos. The peace you practice in the hallway will sustain you in the palace. Sometimes the very things you fear losing are the things standing in the way of your door. God may have to remove people, dismantle plans, or disrupt your comfort to make you ready for greater things. Do not mourn what God removes. He never takes without intending to replace. You cannot hold on to the past and reach for the future at the same time. Release what was and watch how He reveals what's next. The letting go is often the opening key to your next level. When God has chosen your doors, even detours are part of the design. You may think you've taken the long way, but He often leads through wilderness before revealing the promise. The wilderness is not punishment, it's preparation. It's where you learn to depend on His voice, not human validation. It's where you discover that even when no one believes in you, God's choice remains unchanged. The wilderness doesn't delay destiny, it builds it. You will know you are close to your divine door when the pressure increases. Just before the breakthrough, everything will try to distract you. Doubt, fear, exhaustion, people, even opportunities that look right but feel wrong. That is the final test. Can you remain still in the middle of the noise? Can you stay focused when everything around you seems uncertain? If you can stand in peace during the storm, the door will open right in front of you. God doesn't reveal glory to a restless heart. He reveals it to one anchored in trust. Never underestimate what God can do suddenly. Years of waiting can turn into moments of manifestation. The door you have been praying about for seasons can open in one day. But you must be found faithful in the small things. The same God who tests you in the hallway is the same God who honors you at the doorway. When the door opens, it will not only bless you, it will prove that waiting was never wasted. God never forgets the faithful. He sees every time you chose peace over panic, every time you prayed instead of complained, every time you believed when logic told you to quit. None of that was in vain. Each act of trust was building a spiritual foundation strong enough to handle the blessing that's coming. You are not waiting for something ordinary. You are waiting for something divine. And divine things require divine timing. There will be days when it feels like the entire world is moving forward except you. Do not be deceived by appearances. While others may seem ahead, their paths are not your path. The door God chose for you is not in competition with anyone else's. It will open when it is meant to. And when it does, everything that seemed delayed will suddenly make sense. God's timing will redeem every year you thought you lost. One moment of divine favor can restore what decades of effort could not. Worry is the weapon of doubt, but peace is the proof of faith. When you choose peace in the midst of uncertainty, you declare that your life belongs to a higher plan. You declare that you trust the unseen more than the visible. That is the highest level of spiritual maturity. To rest when nothing makes sense. The heart that rests in God becomes unstoppable because it no longer draws strength from circumstance, but from divine assurance. And when that door finally opens, and it will, you will understand why it had to take so long. You will see that every closed door was redirecting you. Every delay was refining you. Every silence was strengthening you. God was not ignoring you. He was preparing you for a level of blessing that required a deeper foundation. The door was never late. It was right on time according to eternity's clock. So, keep walking, keep trusting, keep believing. You are not lost. You are being led. You are not waiting. You are being prepared. The door is not hidden. It is being perfected. The one who chose your doors has not changed his mind. What he said will happen will happen. What he began, he will complete. And when it all unfolds, you will realize that the greatest miracle was not the door opening, but the transformation that happened inside you while you waited for it.